Identity is not what you project, it is what you protect when no one is watching. It is a Tuesday morning, early enough that the city hasn't decided what it wants to be yet. A man walks to his car in the driveway. The paint has faded on the passenger side. The driver's door needs exactly 2 pulls to close. He closes it on the second pull without thinking. Automatic now, stored somewhere in the body. His neighbor's driveway has a new car in it. 3rd one in 8 years. Everyone says he's doing well. But inside that faded car, something is happening that no financial report captures, and no neighbor ever sees. Because that car is not just a car. It is a 10-year answer to a question most people spend their entire lives avoiding. And to understand what that question actually is, we need to go somewhere most psychology content never goes. Modern culture has a language for success, and that language is almost entirely visual. What you wear, where you eat, what sits in your driveway when the neighbors walk past. For most people, a car quietly stopped being transportation a long time ago. It became a declaration. A public answer to an unspoken question that hums beneath every social interaction. How are you doing? Researchers at the University of Michigan found that material purchases are driven not primarily by functional need, but by social comparison, the constant, quiet measuring of self against others. The new car becomes proof, not proof offered to yourself, proof offered to everyone watching. And so the cycle begins. Every 3 years, a fresh answer to that same question. But then there is this other person, the one still driving the same car they bought a decade ago, the one who knows exactly where the dashboard cracks, exactly what that sound means in winter, exactly how hard to close the door. Psychology has a name for what is happening inside that person. It is not frugality. It is not stubbornness. It is a fundamentally different relationship with identity itself, and that difference, invisible, almost never discussed, may be one of the most important psychological distinctions in modern life. Everything seemed ordinary until we look at what that difference actually costs to build. There is a concept in psychology called self-concept clarity. The degree to which a person's internal sense of who they are is stable, consistent, and genuinely their own. It turns out this matters more than almost any other psychological variable. People with high self-concept clarity show lower social anxiety, stronger emotional resilience, and significantly less need for external validation to feel okay about themselves. Here is what the psychology of consumerism never quite says out loud. Every time a person upgrades, not because they need to, but because others are watching, they send a message to their own brain. Who I am is not yet enough. I need this object to finish the sentence. Not greed, not ambition, incompleteness. The new car doesn't just signal status outward, it temporarily fills an internal void inward. And that filling is temporary by design because the mechanism driving the upgrade is social comparison anxiety. It doesn't dissolve when you get the new car. It recalibrates. The benchmark shifts. Now someone else has something newer. Not the car, not the purchase. The anxiety itself is the product. Identity borrowed from objects is identity that must be renewed constantly. It is rented, not owned. The person still in the same car has stepped, whether consciously or not, out of that rental arrangement. Their sense of who they are no longer depends on what sits in the driveway. And that shift from external to internal anchoring of identity is not small. Psychologists call it the difference between identity contingency and identity autonomy. Not performance, not display, not proving, just existing as yourself, without the supporting props. But here is where the story takes a darker turn, because exiting that cycle is not quietly respected. In modern culture, it is punished. The social cost of not upgrading is almost never discussed seriously, but it is real, and it is specifically cruel. There are two kinds of social pressure. Mockery is the obvious one. Someone laughs at the old car. Someone asks if you lost a bet. That pain is sharp, but it is dismissible. Mockery has a clear source. You can name it. You can reject it. The second kind is harder. Pity. When the people around you assume your old car means you are struggling. When a coworker asks quietly if everything is okay. When a family member offers help with money you don't need. When a partner's face changes in a parking lot full of expensive cars, not out of cruelty, out of concern, and something passes between you that neither of you can fully name. Pity masquerades as kindness. That is what makes it so difficult to carry. Because mockery you can dismiss. Pity feels like evidence. This is the psychological gauntlet the person drives through every day. What psychologists have observed is that humans have a powerful need for social legibility, the experience of being accurately read by the people around them, of having their choices make sense to others. The person in the faded car is socially illegible to a culture trained to read worth through visible objects. They are being misread constantly by people who mean well. And this is where most people break, not because the car embarrasses them, because being misunderstood by people they love year after year is one of the quietest, hardest things a human being can endure. This is the cost no financial calculator includes. The person who holds on, who keeps driving anyway, is not simply being financially disciplined. They are demonstrating a specific and deeply undervalued psychological capacity, the ability to be misread. And continue. Stay with me, because what comes next is the part that nobody talks about. Here is the psychological reality that neither the financial advice version of this story nor the minimalist lifestyle version actually names directly. Keeping the same car for 10 years and enduring what comes with it is an act of identity authorship. Most people live in a state of what psychologists call identity contingency. Their sense of self depends on external feedback. The job title confirms them. The neighborhood confirms them. The car in the driveway confirms them. When the feedback is positive, they feel whole. When it shifts, they restructure. They upgrade what is visible so the world reflects back something they can live with. The world calls this aspiration. Psychology calls it fragility. The person still in the old car has done something different. They have, slowly, painfully, almost always invisibly, decoupled their sense of self from external confirmation. The world calls this being cheap. History calls it financial autonomy. Marcus Aurelius called it the only freedom that cannot be taken from you. What it produces, and not just financially but psychologically, is not pride, not smugness, not defiance. It is something quieter and rarer than any of those. Freedom from the performance. The ability to drive to work and feel at a red light, not shame, not superiority, just the road. Identity is not what you project. It is what you protect when no one is watching. This is not a story about cars. This is a recurring human pattern. The same dynamic plays out in the apartment slightly above budget because the neighborhood communicates something. In the wardrobe adjusted each season because culture says to. In the career path, chosen partly because it sounds impressive in 2 sentences at a dinner party. The car is just the most visible version of a question that runs through every major decision modern life asks of you. Are you building a life or building an audience for one? Most people never ask that question clearly. The incentives of modern culture work specifically against asking it. Because the moment someone genuinely answers it, the moment they look at what they already have and quietly decide this is enough, they become nearly impossible to sell to. That is why the person in the faded car makes people uncomfortable. Not because they failed to keep up, because they opted out of a game most people don't realize they're playing, and they look fine. Now you can see why. It is a Tuesday morning, early enough that the city hasn't decided what it wants to be yet. The man closes his door on the second pull. Automatic, like something that has always belonged to him. Everyone who sees that car sees a story about struggle. The man driving it knows it is a story about something else entirely. If this raised a question worth sitting with, that was the point. Next time, we go deeper into why the identities people perform publicly are often the opposite of who they are privately, and what psychology says happens when those two finally meet.